Do you think from Wuthering it's worth to come back to play Genshin? I stopped playing when the plunge buffer came out. It depends on what you want out of your game. Wuwa and Genshin are similar in a lot of ways. I think the ones that are most important when it comes to like people that want to know if they they like one of the games, if they should play the other, is they're both gacha games with much slower power creep than other gachas. Um, which makes it very viable to play them casually. And I'm somewhat talking about on my ass for Wuwa here because like I'm going off of what I've seen people say. I don't really play it anymore, so I'm not entirely confident. So do correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I understand, both Wuwa and Genshin, if you only play them like 3 or 4 different times a patch, as like you won't feel like you're falling behind in terms of like power. Like you'll, if you were able to clear stuff, you're likely still going to be able to clear stuff unless it's like heavily tailored towards a certain unit. But even if you're not able to clear this one, you'll probably be able to clear the next one. And if you're not able to clear this one, it's just because none of what you have works against it. Right? But there's not really much, or the power creep is like really slow, which means that they're games that lend themselves very well to relatively casual gameplay. And that's like probably the best, the biggest advantage for the games is like, if you're someone who likes playing games for the story, if you're someone who likes playing game for exploration, both Genshin and Wuwa are going to scratch that itch. You'll be able to log into them a few times a patch, do the story you like, and then log out and not feel like you're completely getting left behind the next time you log back in. And so then the question just becomes, is that you? Is that what you care about? And if it is, then I'd say it probably might be worth picking it back up. Not picking it back up to play it every day, but coming back once or twice a patch to do the story, do the events that you like. It's definitely the healthiest way to play Genshin. Honestly, it's the main reason why if I do end up going back to one of the other gachas, it's probably gonna be Wuwa. Cause like, I'm never gonna go back to playing any of them every day. But out of Wuwa, Star Rail, and ZZZ, Wuwa's the one that's probably gonna be the most fun to like just come back to, play for a few days, and then not play for another 3 patches. Alternatively, it might end up being Star Rail just because Star Rail is a lot more popular and people want to yap about Star Rail a lot more. I always have people yapping to me about Star Rail, so it kind of gets me curious. There's a few content creators I follow that are Star Rail content creators, and I watch their stuff sometimes. But that's just peer pressure. It's not because of the actual game. Is Idle Hyperloop still viable, or is it low-key cope? It depends on how you define viable and cope. I'd say that it's both viable and cope. I thought you'd be so addicted on Nuwa since there's so many mechanics and things like echo sets and stuff. The biggest reason why, I mean, I talk about this every time I talk about Wuwa, but the biggest reason why I didn't end up getting that hooked on Wuwa is because the devs were making it very clear the ways in which it wanted to be similar to Genshin, and the ways in which it wanted to be similar to Genshin were things about Genshin I don't like. Like a lot of the decisions they made when it came to like changes from CBT2 to live and quote unquote bug fixes that are which is stuff that was like changed not because it worked in a way that was different that was described, but because it worked in a way that was different than they intended, right? Which is the sort of stuff that, like, they can call it a bug fix, and it can be considered a bug fix, but in practice, it's a change in mechanics, right? But, like, the massive quick swap nerfs, the attack set nerf, like that made it clear to me that they were leaning more towards casual friendly gameplay. But the only reason why I was interested in Uwa to begin with was the ways in which it was less casual oriented than Genshin. But they realized that being more casual friendly is more profitable. So that's what they went for. Which, like, it's a good decision. Like, it's gonna make them more money. It's a smart thing for them to do, but it still makes me a little sad. Who is currently going more casual and more sweaty at the same time? They're making the game easy mechanically, but I think mechanically challenging content. The thing is, like, it's not just in terms of difficulty that I'm talking about, like, casual friendly. It's also in terms of, like, systems. Like, okay, I think that the most promising part of WUA in terms of what I want out of a game is the ways in which it was like pseudo MMO like. Games that have incentives for you to log in every day, to me, are more fun if they also have actual things to do every day outside of those incentives. And echo grinding, I think, can be incredibly fun. But the fact that it's gated behind daily resources, to me, makes it significantly less fun. And I understand that that's just, like, that's not an inherently bad thing game design-wise. It just means they're aiming at a different audience. But as part of the audience it's not aiming towards, it disappoints me. By the way, have they changed co-op yet? Can you play more than one character in co-op yet? Or are you still only one character? Only one character? Yeah. That's another one of the issues. Because WUA's combat doesn't have as many interactions with enemies as Genshin's does, in the sense that not like your outgoing actions don't interact with enemies as much as Genshin does because you don't have enemy aura bullshit to deal with. It means that you don't need as much coordination in co-op gameplay if you want to make the best out of the things that are happening. Because you don't have to coordinate auras and reactions for stuff like that, right? That means that in Genshin, right, if you were allowed to have multiple characters per player in co-op, that would be a problem. Because you now have fucking 12 different characters applying different elements. And it would be impossible to, like, reliably get proper auras and have cohesive teams. Right? But that's not a limitation that WUA's combat does. So I don't understand why the combat wouldn't allow you to have multiple characters in co-op. Because the combat in WUA is fun because of the swaps. And so, not being able to swap in WUA is fucking disappointing. It's sad. What makes Genshin's combat fun is the reactions, and you can still do reactions in co-op if you coordinate it with the other people you're playing with. And so Genshin's combat has the possibility to be fun in co-op, even if you can't swap. WUA's combat doesn't have that element of its combat system that is still usable in co-op. Right? Like, yeah, you can still trigger intros and outros, but it's not just intros and outros that make swaps important. It's the fact that you can animation cancel and be spending time on different characters. That's something that Genshin doesn't have, and so it doesn't get punished as hard for limiting you to one character. When was the last time you had fun in Genshin Impact co-op? I have fun in Genshin co-op every time there's a combat event. Every time we have a combat event that allows co-op, it's fun to do in co-op. Honestly, the most fun I've ever had in Genshin is the combat events that allow co-op. I posted a video a few years ago about, like, the Hypostasis event that I did in co-op with Rin. Who else did I do it with? I don't remember. And that was probably the most fun I've ever had playing Genshin. It was so fucking fun. I really loved it. Rin, PyCon, and someone else, yeah.
Video.
Oh, it was Gift.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't post the video. Huh. But Rin did. Anyways, this was a fucking... This was so fun to do. I really, 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 really had so much fucking fun with this. That kind of shit is really, really fun, right? And Genshin doesn't capitalize on it. They don't give us permanent good co-op content. Which is a fucking problem, don't get me wrong. But, when it comes to WUA, I don't think their combat really allows for fun in co-op. Like, I'm not saying you're not allowed to have fun in co-op in WUA. I'm saying I don't think I could, even if the event was fun. Because the combat in WUA is so reliant on the swaps. And it's so much less interactive without them. But like, that was one of the things I mentioned in my CBT2 review video for WUA. That there's no reason why you shouldn't be allowed to have multiple characters in co-op. And like, I remember there were people being like, yeah, but then it would be too easy. But like, just make the enemies tankier accordingly. If allowing multiple characters means you're gonna end up doing like 5 times more damage in co-op, then make the enemies 5 times tankier and that's fixed. Co-op with randoms though is miserable. I mean, that's fair. The thing is, the only reason why... Okay, if co-op with random is miserable, that's something that can be fixed by co-oping with non-randoms. The thing is, that's not gonna happen because the co-op isn't fun enough for you to have an incentive to find people to play with. Imagine having friends. You don't need to have friends. Like, if the co-op was good, every fucking Discord would have, like, party-forming channels for co-op. The reason why that's not really a thing is because the co-op isn't fun enough for it to be a thing. The co-oping with random being, like, awful is a byproduct of co-op in general not being good enough for the community to want to address that. Co-op is fun, it's just there's nothing to do. I mean, for Genshin, yeah, it's, like, the systems in co-op can be fun, but Genshin struggles a lot from the fact that there is very little to do in co-op. Anyways, I hope that helped you for your question of should you go back to Genshin. At the end of the day, don't force yourself to play a game you don't enjoy, right? Like, it doesn't matter how good a game is, if you don't enjoy yourself while you're playing it, it's not a good game for you. You don't have a responsibility to enjoy a good game. Nor do you have a responsibility to hate a bad game. Like, personally, I had an awful time playing Elden Ring. I don't think it's a bad game, but it's not for me. At all. I fucking hated it. And that's why I stopped playing it. But if you don't enjoy yourself playing Genshin, you don't have to go back, you know? I take a look at my enormous penis, and my troubles start melting away. I take a look at my enormous penis, and the happy times are coming to stay. I gotta sing and I dance when I glance in my pants, and the feeling's like a sunshiny day. I take a look at my enormous penis, and everything is going my way.